Hey, welcome to another how-to video by SCF Solutions. Let's get started.
Okay, so let's take a second to look at the web UI for the A90, and we're going to then make a connection to it to upgrade the firmware. So we're going to go ahead in the system tray and connect. If you're already connected to it, I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect and reconnect it. I'm going to connect to the serial number of the device. You can look underneath of it, the serial number. Once it's connected, run your favorite internet browser. I'm using Google Chrome in this case. 192 and 168.10.1. If you've previously logged into it, it may ask you to present you with an account and password, and it's going to be ADMIN for admin, and password will be password until you've changed it. So as we scrub through the settings here, you'll notice that the current position, this rover is running. It's currently in fixed mode, even though I'm not running a data collector. The data collector last connected to it at the same settings. I'm in the same general area under the same conditions. So I'm pretty well on its own. It's taken those previous device settings and initiated a setup and start, and it is already in RTK fixed mode. And you can see that the correction signal is no more than 1 second old. I'm running 14 satellites, 9 on GPS, 5 on GLONASS right now. Now, that is because in my TopNet correction area, my nearest base station is only a dual GNSS system, so it does not have access to the other systems, so that's why it seems to be running a little bit lower. Although the PDOP and the positional accuracy is really good, it's not using its full potential. The data link it's transmitting, notice that I put in a 4G card, and the NTRIP password for TopNet is just your account, and the IP is 185.930.38, port 8008. I've left it on the MSN, but since I'm only in an area where a true multi-GNSS system correction is not available, I'm really not getting any benefit of that. So I could dumb that down to the RTK RTCM3, and it would behave just as fine. So you can see it's grabbed an IP address. There is no password or username for the Bell APN. So the APN, remember there is two settings, and the just happens to be that this particular card uses the pda.bell.ca APN. So if you run into snags, the inet.bell.ca is also one of the two APNs associated with Bell SIM and data cards. So I actually took this card out of my phone and I put it in the receiver itself. Often I would suggest that when you start it with the SIM card for the first time, give it a chance to get going, then turn it off, then turn it on again. So you want to force it to kind of reread the card a couple times. Once I've connected with my data collector, in this case I was using Field Genius Android, made all my settings, you can, while it's running, come in here through the web UI, and there may be times when there are some settings that maybe your data collector software does not make the necessary adjustments. So you can come in here and manually and do that. So if you want to look at the firmware, look at some of the other particular settings, the trim, the UHF radio, what it's set to. It's currently set to 460.150 megahertz. We can go ahead and see the mode, whether we want to record raw data or not, whether we want to run it in a relay mode. I've got a number of settings here. If you want to run SBAS, if you're just using it as just kind of a base and you want to just get an updated correction, you can use the SBAS. The RTK timeout, if you're going to be significantly a longer distance between your fixes and you want to carry that ambiguity resolution beyond, say, one minute, you can crank that up. You can see the maximum here is 8100, which is quite a lot. Generally, I would not recommend that. So you can get into the device config, set your sensor up to 5 Hertz. That's basically going to give you about one every fifth of a second. So it's great for doing stakeout. It gives you a little extra performance instead of having to wait for that 1 full second for the update rate. If you're getting tired of listening to the girl speak, you can turn her off. I don't mind her. I get used to her. If you're using a Rhine X3 instead of Rhine X2, so the other thing here is if you want to use this for a hotspot, you can turn on the hotspot to share the network. So depending on what kind of data card you put in the receiver, and it has a decent data plan. If you really like the background maps and you want to just run that capability, say for instance Field Genius Android, and you want to get that background imagery through the hotspot on the receiver, then you can enable that. So I would enable that. Just make sure that you know not everyone's connected to your open hotspot and using your data. And also enable the network so you'll be able to make that connection to it. So those two settings are not the defaults. I would turn those settings on. So enable network and enable the hotspot. As for messages, you can turn on some of the messages. I've got them all turned on, and depending on how often those messages need to be updated, sometimes just updating the position. So that's the GLL message. You can crank that up to 5 hertz, depending on whether you've paid for 10 hertz or up to 50 hertz. So those are extra options you can pay to get more performance, more updated results for some of these messages. So you can make some choices. Generally, these are set at 1 hertz, which means every second they'll update. More specifically, we want to go down to the management side of things here, and we realize that there's a firmware update. So to update the firmware, we're going to, first of all, download the file from the vendor or resource location where that's provided. Okay, it's going to come as a .bin, so it's going to come as a binary, a compiled program. We're going to need to go and choose the file first. So I have my firmware file here. So it's an A90 boot, and you can see that it's 22.201.bin. If we go and check that to a list, so that's the most current version as of April 24, 2022. So we're going to basically open that file, and we're going to upload. Now I've already done this one, and I could check that by going back to my information and verify that it's running 0.210929. So you're going to basically just run that. It's going to then automatically detect once it's uploaded successfully that a firmware has been installed. It's going to reboot. So after the reboot, you should be able to then put in the 4G card. You might need to restart it 2 more times just to get the receiver recognizing the 4G card and that it's connecting. And under the data link that it's physically connected, you can see that it's performing. Okay, these 2 other items would have been done during the staging of the equipment when it was purchased. So you can see the unit here never expires, and the registration for the GNSS, it's also it's ready to roll. If you need to change any of the passwords, I don't recommend this. As I mentioned, the default is I'll write it in here. I'm not going to change it. Oh, I guess you can't see it. The default here is admin and password. If you want to change that, you certainly can, but that is, if you, the only way to get that back is to reset the whole thing to the factory settings. If you want to force your users to, when they connect to the Wi-Fi, to actually put in an authentication password, you can force that as well. So there's a little bit of security built in there if you choose to do so. If you're finding that something's misbehaving, you can also do a little self-test. You can reset the factory settings, format the internal disk, and maybe that's faster than having to delete all the files. And you can do a reset, which sometimes can, if something's a firmware's got stuck, or maybe you find it's been hesitating, you can always give that a try. So in our case here, once that's updated, you can go back to the data link. If the card is running properly, you should get an IP address. That's the clue that the card has been transmitting or connected. So you can also disconnect, reconnect, restart the SIM card, so force it to kind of reread it. You can say get the mount point and then force it to look through the list. In our case with TopNet, we're available. We can use the from the RTK, RTC M3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These seven right here are all part of the TopNet subscription. So you can make choices. There's pros and cons. Some other vendors prefer the CMR Plus format over the MSM. I would suggest you can certainly play with both. With the A90, that would be the preferred. So the other part that I like to do, once I know it's running, I like to go into my configuration set and I save my current settings. So you can see I have a number of them here. Here's one I saved recently, my A90 RTK TopNet. I'm going to save my current settings. I could probably overwrite that one. I don't know what's going to let me overwrite now. You can see it has a extension .cf. I'll say submit, and it should have overwritten that file. What I like, if I have multiple receivers and I don't want to have to reconfigure them all manually, I'll just go ahead and download that file. And then I'll have my config file. So it'll record all of these particular settings. And if I was to do the opposite, then go ahead, choose a file, upload config, and then apply it. Once I've done that, it'll do a restart. Obviously, with a different SIM card, it's gonna have to, it's gonna verify that SIM card. So it may not. Some of these particular settings may not be exactly the same, but if it is a fully functional SIM card and it does restart correctly, you should be able to go into the data link and see that it's connected and the position, depending on how it goes, it should go right into the RTK fixed mode. So hope that helps a little bit to understand how to set up the A90 with a 4G SIM card and run the management software to perform a firmware upgrade. And then you can also record the configuration set. So that's some time savers, all done through the web UI. That should save some time in restarting a unit or being consistent if you have more than one unit with your company. All right, good luck. Reach out as always if you have questions.
Hey, thanks for watching. Feel free to contact us for more information regarding our products and solutions at sdfsolutions.com.